My manager at the time, my boss, right? He tried to bring scripture to the meeting of him firing me. I said, this guy actually thinks he provides for me. I said, you aren't my provider, God is.
So we've heard about your rise and your start. So tell me how challenges were faced.
Let's just say, I was thrust into the devil's playground. I remember being in that cell and I prayed, Lord, if you get me out of this, I promise you, I will serve you for the rest of my life.
What's your advice for someone who wants to become a motivational speaker? Mr Beezy, welcome to Faith Off the Record. Appreciate your time for coming in and letting the audience get to know you on an intimate level, sharing your journey, sharing your story, and sharing a lot more about your faith. So tell us, who is Mr Beezy?
Oh boy, Mr Beezy, who am I? I'm a motivational speaker, so I've been a motivational speaker for the last 14 years. But more importantly, that's what I do, who I am. I'm a man of God. I'm a man of faith. I'm a man who loves the Lord. You know, I grew up in a Christian household. So I've always known about God. And I think a lot of people don't really see that side of me. So it's going to be interesting getting into this podcast today to really just kind of show people how much the faith means to me.
That's beautiful. So take us back from the beginning on your early stage, your early life. Just let the audience know how it all started.
Gosh. All right, cool. Like I said, Nigerian, so I grew up in a Christian household. I think for me, the turning point was when I went to university. You know, that's when I really had the challenges with my faith because, you know, it was no church in my university area. There was no regular fellowship for me. And the environment that you're in, where I went university outside London, Coventry University, let's just say I was thrust into the devil's playground. And that's where my faith was really tested. That's when alcohol, parties, sleeping around, illegal money, like you name it, I dabbled in it in university. And I think that time, that 3 to 4 year period really showed me how important it is to have God in your life and what life is like when you don't have God in your life. Because even in that 3 to 4 year period, there was a period where I got arrested twice within 3 months. And the first time it was for fighting outside of a club. The second time was for committing fraud, right? Like it's deep. And let me tell you, or just on that, what actually got me out of that was I remember being in that cell and I prayed. And you know, like in the faith, we have what we call those heartfelt prayers where you pray from your heart, like you mean it. Because I think as Christians at times, prayer has become a habit. Prayer has become something that's like, it's just prayer. So a lot of the times we don't really pray heartfelt prayers. You know, Jesus said to his disciples, you couldn't even stay awake for me for an hour to pray with me. Because I think that's the attitude we have. Oh, it's prayer. But no, when I tell you prayer, heartfelt prayer, sincere prayer, I remember being in that cell because I knew I was guilty. The prayer was, Lord, if you get me out of this, I promise you, I will serve you for the rest of my life. And I was so serious. This wasn't, oh, I was just saying it to get, no. And I remember the Lord answered my prayer and he got me out of it. The moment I got out of that police cell, I rang my older brother. I said, you need to get me. And literally within 2 days, he came up to Coventry to grab me. Whatever of my stuff could fit in his car, I put it in and we went back to London and I never went back. Because I had made a vow, almost like a covenant with God that, hey, you get me out of this where I know I'm guilty, I'll devote the rest of my life to you. And what was interesting about that season was, at that time, my church was doing a young adults retreat. And originally I hadn't signed up to go. and there happened to be a space left for me. And I remember I went because I was just like, I'm going all in on this Christian life now, drawing closer to God. At that retreat, I encountered God like I'd never encountered God before. And I remember praying and crying. And even when I wasn't trying to cry, like trying to be tough, the tears were just trickling down my face. There was nothing I could do. And what I experienced was the presence of the Holy Spirit. And at that moment, I knew that God was real. And that really was big for me because I was at a stage where I'd been living my life in a way for 3 to 4 years, so far from God, doing things that are not of the faith, doing things that I'm not proud of. But saying that prayer in that cell and then coming back home, going to that retreat for those couple of days and just being in God's presence, that transformed my life.
Would you say that was your turning point?
That was my prodigal son moment. That was my turning point, definitely.
So take me through then, what was that next chapter for you like after that?
Yeah, it was just really a tough journey because it's one thing saying, yeah, God, like, I'm going to give my life to you. It's another thing living it, right? And I realized that, you know what? You have to be strong when it comes to the faith. So for me, I went on the season of trying to find myself again. So, coming out of university, you're used to making illegal money. Now it's you're unemployed, you're searching for jobs, you've got your degree. I was unemployed for like 9 months. And I remember it got to a stage where when I was collecting my job seekers allowance, yeah, that's right, I was on benefits. They said to me, if you don't go on this course, we're going to stop your job seekers allowance. So they made me go on a course and then they ended up giving me a job for like 6 months. Got a 6 month contract. And I remember I hated it. I was at this office job. I didn't know what I was doing. I was so bored, but I had to do it because if I didn't do it, my benefits would stop, right? And it was so funny because in that time, as that job was coming to an end, let's say 2 to 3 weeks left of my contract coming to an end, I knew they weren't extending my contract. And to be honest, I didn't want them to, right? I'm on a Skype Bible study with the young adults in my church. And whilst the Bible study is going on, one of my friends, this girl, messages me privately. And she says, do you have a job? And I'm thinking, my job comes to an end, I'm still in it. But for whatever reason, I just said, nah, I don't. And she's like, oh, I think I've got a job for you. Like, I think you'd be really great at it. I was like, what is it? And she was like, oh, I work for this company that sends speakers into schools. And I think, I've seen you're a youth leader. You talk to the youth in church. I think you'd be really good for it. And I was like, I don't know. I said, talking in schools and talking in church is two different things. So you talk about the faith, the youth, they want to hear about the faith. I said, in schools, them kids ain't trying to hear us. I don't know. She goes, look, just come. And when she told me the name of the company, I knew the guy who owned the company because I'd invited him to come speak at my church. Like, oh, Lord, is this what you want from me? So I said, you know what? I'll go and observe some of the speakers at the company and take it from there. And I promise you, I meant to go and observe those speakers. And they really transformed my mindset. Because like, wow, they motivated me. And I was like, you know, I can see myself doing this. And we'll go into it. But, well, as you can see, I'm a motivational speaker today, 14 years later.
Do you think being a motivational speaker was heavily influenced by your Christian faith and how that's started the process, learning and talking? And I'd imagine doing some messages at church and speaking to young people at church was really strengthening your communication skills and sort of getting into the habit of speaking eloquently, articulating things in a manner that's understandable. How did that transcend into the professionalism today for you?
It was my training without me realizing it because I never actually wanted to be a motivational speaker. I didn't pray about it. I didn't say, God, make me a motivational speaker. I didn't know motivational speaking was an industry. So for me, when I found out about it, I was just like, oh, people get paid to speak. I didn't know that. And even then, when I found that out, I just wanted to keep it real. So I didn't have this special message prepared. It was just, I want to help you guys avoid making the mistakes that I made when I was your age. I want to be that older brother to you. So I didn't know about speaker training or techniques or eye contact and body language and diction and how to articulate yourself or how to engage an audience. I didn't know those things. I was just so raw because I just had this passion in me that I just wanted to help. And I didn't care about all that fancy stuff or I need to be part of Toastmasters or do a TEDx talk. I didn't care about that. I was just like, I want to change your life. And it was interesting because when I first started out, a lot of my feedback was, oh, he's really funny. He's really funny. And I was on Twitter one day, I was just like, do these guys think I'm a comedian or something? I was like, I'm not there to be funny. I'm there to change your life. So I was like, you know what? I need to get a lot serious in my message. And I remember just getting a bit more serious with my message, right? Being a bit more stern in my approach and my delivery. And then the feedback was like, whoa, it changed my life. Oh, wow. You really motivated me. So for me, I think being in church and having opportunities to speak in church definitely had given me that preparation to speak in front of an audience. But I didn't know it was going to lead to where it's led me to today, for sure.
They say that your gift will make room for you.
Mm.
And when you found your gift, it certainly started making room for you.
Mm.
What happened following getting into motivational speaking? What was the light bulb moment with the breakthrough that you've made it?
There's two particular things that changed my career as a motivational speaker. So early on into my career, my boss had arranged for me to go to a conference, a 4-day conference by a guy called Tony Robbins. What's interesting about that is I didn't know who Tony Robbins was, right? So I just went there like kind of open-minded, right? He sent me and my colleague and he was doing things in the conference. And I was like, oh, we do that at work. I was like, oh, that's why we do that. That's why we play music in the background. That's why we tell stories. So it really gave me an understanding of what we actually did in the field as speakers. Cool. That was that kind of really learned the trade at that conference. Then it was listening to Eric Thomas. He's currently the #1 motivational speaker in the world. And he just said a message that changed my life. And the message was, what's your why? And it was like, what's your reason for doing what you do every day? I'd never heard that before. And I remember listening to that message and saying, this is it. That's what's missing. I need to include that in every assembly that I do. Every talk I do, I need to talk about that. I said, that's it. And I promise you, the moment I incorporated that into my presentation, my career changed. Schools were literally booking me just to say that message. Because in that message, they were finding it was changing young people's lives. Because they were crying. And they weren't crying because they were upset or that I'd offended them. They were crying because I changed their life, because I gave them a reality check. I had them thinking about things that they weren't thinking about on a normal day. They were thinking about, oh, my days, I've taken my mum for granted. I've taken my dad for granted. Or do you know what I do when I make my grandparents proud? I had them thinking in a whole different wave that no one had them thinking like before. And that was the turning point in my career. I've never looked back since then, that day.
So we've heard about your rise and your start. But as with all things, you're always faced by obstacles and challenges. So tell me how that happened in a few of those circumstances where challenges were faced as you're maturing now into your field, and how did your faith then had to come alive?
Boy, I put it like this, yeah. For me, my faith was really activated when I started my own business. Because it was one thing working for the company where they were kind of providing the speaking engagements. And where I was growing, the company basically let me go because they couldn't handle my growth. And where I started my own business, so to cut a long story short, I was growing so rapidly in my speaking career. I built myself up to be the top speaker in the company, where I was training all the other speakers below me. But the company even put me on a little retainer. And it got to a stage where I was like, look, I need a pay rise because of the value that I'm bringing to the company. And that's where we clashed. So they refused to give me a pay rise, essentially, right? So I said, cool, no problem. I'm not going to argue over money kind of thing. I set my own business up to supplement the money I wasn't getting, right? They saw that as a conflict of interest because what was happening is clients were finding out I had my own business and they wanted to book me directly. And I wasn't going around promoting my business. You know, you just have a conversation with someone. Oh, is this what you do? I said, no, I run my own business. What, you run your own business? They're like, we only booked this company just to get you. And the company didn't like that. I was like, but I've not exchanged details. I've not promoted it in this. I'm still using all the company information. Cool. So then they basically let me go. And what was so interesting about this, right? This is where I knew God. My manager at the time, my boss, right? He tried to bring scripture to the meeting of him firing me. So I'm going to tell you guys a story. He brought Genesis 13. I never forget it. The story of Lot and Abraham, right? So we know the story where it's like, eventually Abraham and Lot are going to separate, right? Part ways. And Abraham says to Lot, choose which side of the valley, essentially, that you want to go on, and I'll take the other side. So you know Lot, he sees that side where it's all thriving, it's prosperous, the cows, yeah, it's ripe over there. So Lot's like, he looks at that side, it's not really popping. It's like, I want that side, right? Cool, no problem. Lot picks that side, and we know what God does, right? So in that meeting, I remember saying to him, like, I'm happy to stay. Like, I'm happy to stay, like. So then I remember asking him, all right, cool. It got to a stage, I was like, look, do you want me to stay or go? And he said he wants me to go. And God gave me a revelation when I got home that day. He goes, at that moment, the roles switched. He goes, he came into that meeting thinking he was going to be Abraham. But he left that meeting as Lot. Because you gave him the ultimatum. You said you're happy to stay. You said, do you want me to stay or go? And he thought the best thing would be to let me go. And I never forget him saying to me, yeah, because of your growth, we need to take away your safety net. I said, oh, this guy thinks he provides for me. I said, this guy actually thinks he provides for me. He said, go take away my safety net. And I just remember looking him in his eyes and saying, it's on. No problem. I said, you aren't my provider, God is. I said, it's on now. I said, now I'm going to be your competition. And I left that meeting, right? I said to God, man's not my provider. You're my provider. And God just started bringing bookings in, and I don't know where they were coming from, to the extent that clients were ringing me and said, we had to Google you because we rang the old company asking for you. They only told us you don't work there anymore, and that was it. They didn't say that you started your own business. They didn't say that you're still speaking. They just said, they were very cutthroat and said, you don't work there anymore. They said, we had to Google you. That's how we got your number. I said, wow, that's what they're doing. I said, well, I'm very much still doing it. I'm very much still operating. Yeah, let's make this happen. And then the word of mouth just started getting out there, and from strength, I'll go and do a talk, they recommend me to another school. I'll go and do another talk, they recommend me to someone else. And I'm getting feedback and I'm starting to capture, and the business just starts to grow. And how I knew it, right? I think it was within like 3 months of me leaving the company, I bought myself a drop top. Like, and I know it's like, oh, it's a material thing, right? But for me, it was a sign of you didn't break me. It was a sign of, do you know what, this has been on my kind of bucket list to get a convertible. And I'm in the position where I can afford to get a convertible. And I didn't hold back on the convertible that I got. It was the exact car that I wanted, you know what I mean? And for me, that was just, that season showed me that God is my provider. And God has been my provider ever since. Every time I get a booking, I don't think it's because I'm a great speaker. I know it's by the grace of God. So I never get to a stage where I think, oh, I'm so good at speaking. That, oh, of course, every booking I get is by the grace of God, even till today. I would say I don't necessarily market myself. I'm not like, oh, book me, book me, book me. But somehow I'm booked throughout the whole year. Like from, I think June, May, I started getting bookings for like March 2025. That don't make sense. I'm already getting bookings for next year and this year ain't over. So that just goes to show me the grace of God. So no one can knock me and say that your God isn't real. I know my God is real because he's shown it through the provision he's given me through my business.
So a lot of people may not know this, but we met through a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I had met you. We were both asked to speak at the event. And while I was sitting down and I saw you go up and saw you in action speaking, I thought, wow, this guy is incredible and has a great story to share, and he's a man of faith. And I thought to myself, which was this message of Mr. Beezy on the pulpit has to be also a version off the pulpit. And I was taken back, just as you were speaking, to one of the stories you shared at that event with Switzerland, which is that regular bookings and the favor which you went through. And I'd love for you to just share that again about how that opportunity just expanded. And it's a good segue into what we're discussing and how we are at the moment on favor, expansion, your work bookings exploding. But just remind me again on that story with Switzerland, because I think that's so incredible.
The Bible talks about life and death being in the power of the tongue, right? So I got to a stage in my career where I believed I was good. And I think a part of this journey is you have to believe in yourself. You know, the Bible's very clear about that. You know, your faith, as a man thinks in his heart, you know, so is he, right? So you've got to believe. There's got to be a part of you that believes in yourself, right? Now, I'm not digressing, but I need to share this as well. I always tell people, fear is also a form of belief. How do we know this? Just look at the story of Job. Job says, the thing I feared the most is what happened to me. But because he believed that thing would happen, it happened. So we can believe in faith or we can believe in fear. But either way, what's going to activate them is your belief. I said, all right, cool, got it. So I remember now in 2017, I was just like, this year I'm going to be an international motivational speaker. And people looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, yeah, this year I'm going to be an international motivational speaker. And they were looking at me like, but you've got no connections, bro. Like, how? I just believe. I don't know how, but I believe. And it's so funny. A family friend that I hadn't spoken to for years, she was like, can you come to Scotland to speak to the youth in my church? Yeah, of course I can. I was just like, it's so random. It's not a school booking and it's in another country. I said, okay, Lord. I went to Scotland, Aberdeen. It was amazing. Right? Came back. I was like, I'm an international speaker now. So I was like, no. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you didn't leave the UK. I was like, ah. I said, okay. So here's where my faith is. I said, I will be an international speaker this year and I will speak outside of the UK. So I declared I'm going to be an international speaker. A few months later, I get an invitation to come and speak in Geneva in Switzerland. Don't know how, There's an agency that I was with. I hadn't got an international speaking engagement with them prior to that. That was my first inquiry. Went out to Switzerland. They loved me so much in Switzerland that they have been flying me out to Switzerland every year since 2017. In fact, this year when I went, not only did they say they want me to come back next year, they said next year they also want to take me to Austria, right? The guy also wants to take me to South Africa to where he's based, right? Why is this important? Because I had to dream. I had to believe. I had to have faith. It says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Faith without works is dead, right? So I had to first believe. That was my first part. I had to believe I'm good enough. Then I had to believe it could actually happen. And then what did I do? I kept sowing the seeds. What was the work? Every speaking engagement that I had, I just made sure I was really good. I made sure I was really good. I said, one day, the door will open. And it just so happened, this is the power of declaration, right? I want to tell you the power of declaration. The year I declared I'd become an international speaker, I became an international speaker. There was a year where I was at a football stadium in Colchester, right? I went onto the pitch. I was at a teacher conference, networking, promoting my business. I remember I went onto the pitch, I looked around. I said, one day I'm going to be motivating professional football teams. Now hear me out. I wasn't specific. I said, one day. You know what happened? 4 years after I made that declaration, I got an invitation to go speak to the academy at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, a Premier League football team. And at that moment, Tottenham became my client. Not League Two, not League One. I went straight to the Premier League. I promise you, within the last month, I can play you the voice note. Well, what's that? The head coach at Chelsea under 18s has messaged me saying he wants to get me into Chelsea. Right? I've had other people say it. Send this proposal to the Premier League so you can work with all the clubs in the Premier League. I was at a networking event yesterday. The guy's like, we're in West Ham. What are you saying? Are you going to come join the company so we can get you? I made the declaration 4 years ago. But because I declared, and so that showed me the power of my words. Some people are not where they want to be because of what they've been speaking. And some people are where they want to be because of what they've been speaking. And let me tell you something about the Bible. Whether you believe or not, principle is principle. So as a man of faith, the Bible tells me to take dominion. It didn't say take dominion over England. It says that we have dominion over the whole earth. So that means I have to be international. That's my instructions. But I realized you can't activate in your life what you don't understand. What do I mean by that? If you don't understand that you're meant to take dominion and it's just the thing that you hear, I'm meant to take that's what it's going to be. Because when you understand something, you act on it. All right, let's talk about money. Give and it shall be given unto you. If you really understand that principle, you'll be wealthy. But people are like, but if I give, I won't have. So you don't understand the principle. So I understand the power of my words. That's why I know when I speak to an audience, I ain't just speaking to people, I'm speaking to your spirit. I'm transforming your spirit. So for me, I understand the gift that God has given me now. And that's why my gift is making room for me.
And I want to just continue on with this one point here about how that faith, that gifting is going. As everyone may know who follow you, your 4 a.m.s or even 3 a.m.s, good morning champions. How did that come about? Because when I see you, when I wake up first thing, I try not to look at my phone. And there you are. Good morning champions. You're the first person that comes on that feed. And to me, it's inspiring as well because you're doing something for yourself, going to the gym. for your own fitness,
Mm.
for looking well, and you're encouraging to take the time out to let people know that they are somebody
Mm.
and there's a motivation there. So how did it come about with, number one, Good Morning Champions, and two, why that time?
Oh gosh. Here's the thing about being authentic, man. You don't try and do something, then it becomes a thing, right? So I just made a decision that I want to become the best version of myself, right? Because there's no point me going on stages and saying this and, oh guys, when you have challenges, never give up. I got to live the message that I preach. I got to show people the struggles. I got to show people the challenges. Because what a lot of people like to do is they like to glorify the aspects that they're good in, and then the aspects they're not good in, they hide it, right? And I was like, no, I'm going to show you. So I'll talk to you. Yeah, I don't feel it today, but I'm going still. So when you don't feel like doing that revision, when you don't feel like going to work, you can push through as well, right? When you don't feel like working out, you can go and do your workout, right? Why that time in the morning? Because I know what I'm like. I know as the day goes on, I get lazier. My energy levels drop. Also, I don't like training in the packed gym. At 4 a.m. in the morning, there's a handful of us. You cool? You cool? I go about my business. Do you understand? So I ain't got to wait around to use the equipment. I love it. It's so empty. I can just go to do what I need to do and I'm in and I'm out, right? Why the message in the morning? Because I want to inspire people first thing in the morning. You see, first thing in the morning is when you have the most energy, right? So I thought, why not give them a different message every single day? Literally just when I park my car and I'm walking to the gym, less than a minute, you don't know who needs to hear that message. You don't have to message me to say you needed to hear that. I don't care about that. I don't need anyone to validate me. But I know it's a message for every single person who's following me. It might not be this week. It might be next week. It might be next month. So there's always a life that you can touch, right? But also, it really helps me to stay accountable to myself. And I wanted to start off with something powerful. So, morning champions. That's what I say every single day. Because I want you to know that you're a champion. I want you to know that you're an overcomer. We spoke about it. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I want to speak life over you. I want to greet you by letting you know, first thing in the morning, you are a champion. What's a champion? Champion's a winner. Champions are overcome. So it's empower. I want to empower you first thing in the morning. That's why I start every morning champions. Because I know even that level of speaking life into you can change someone's life. So that's how that started. And then from there, it was just like, look, we need to be in the gym to become the best version of ourselves. And I just want to show you guys that I'm on my journey the same way you guys are on your journey. I'm no different to you guys.
I take it you don't train in the evening.
Nope. Evening's a no-go. I rather miss a day than train in the evening. That's how bad it is.
So what's the direction that you see in this generation? Because you're meeting a lot of people, both young and old. You're inspiring, you're talking to them, you're encouraging. What's the trend that you're seeing right now, which is the number one theme that's a common trend in this generation that you want to really help, and you really see that there's more to be done?
I think in this generation, a lot of people doubt themselves. It's a thing where I've noticed is like the older people are getting, the less they believe in themselves. They start saying things like, oh, that's not realistic, or someone like me can't do that. So one of my big things is I want to give you your belief back. I want to eradicate doubt from your life, because I just believe doubt is a liar. And doubt has stopped so many people from being successful. So for me, if I can give you that belief back, because what does belief do? It allows you to take action because you believe. But when you don't believe and you doubt, it stops you from taking action. And therefore, now because you're not taking action, you can't produce fruit. You can't produce results. Results are produced through action, right? So you have to take action. But action is triggered by belief, right? So there's something I teach called the emotion cycle. We say everything begins with your thoughts. So your thoughts determine your emotions determine your actions, and your actions determine your results, and the cycle repeats itself. So if the thought is negative, the emotion is going to be negative, the actions are going to be negative, and the result will be negative. Vice versa, if the thought is positive, leads to positive emotions, leads to positive action, leads to positive results. Right? So everything begins with the thought. Everything begins with your mind. I always say to people, if you can do it mentally, you can do it physically. Right? So a lot of the battle does begin in our mind. And that comes down to belief again, you know? So you have to believe. So for me, it's a thing where I understand the power of the mind. I understand the power of your words. And I try to use those things to become the best version of myself. Because I know it's easy to slip off. If there's one thing I can tell you, us as human beings, you have to know yourself. You have to know your strengths, you have to know your weaknesses, and you have to create the environment for your strengths. I promise you, I still get days today where I don't feel like going to the gym. Where when the alarm goes off at 3:40 in the morning, I question, should I just take a day off? Like, do you know what I'm saying? But because I know what I'm like and I've wired myself, like, you've come too far now to give up. You've come too far now to fall off. Keep going.
And it's almost, you have to owe it to yourself because you know you have an audience too
That's right.
that are maybe depending on that morning
Do you know what it
message.
is? It's like, honestly, the first person I'm doing it for is myself. The second person is my wife, because I want to give my wife the best of me. And then, yeah, of course, I've got people watching me, man. I remember there was one day, recently, the last 2 months or so, 3 months, I literally just couldn't go gym because I was outside London for work. This guy messaged me on Instagram, he's like, bro, did you oversleep? I was like, no, why? He's like, bro, where's the video? Where's the message? I was like, bro, sorry, man, I'm in Birmingham right now. Like, I didn't do it because I wasn't on it. I just did it because I wasn't available. But that really just was a wake-up call for me. Like, people are watching you. Even if you think they're not watching, they're watching. And I realize when you're impacting lives, not everyone's going to say that you're impacting their life. Not everyone's going to say that they're impacting that message. You know, that message impacted them. You know, I think of it like when we was in secondary school. I always say, you know, we all had at least one teacher that impacted our lives. But how many of us actually went back to secondary school when we left to say thank you? A lot of people say no. But it doesn't change the fact that teacher impacted your life. Right? So I realized at times that, you know, people won't always acknowledge the impact you had. And that's okay. Because I don't need anyone to validate me. I know enough in myself that any message I'm putting out, whether it's before gym or from a talk that I've done, is value for someone to have impacted.
Talking about impact, you mentioned one key word here, your wife.
Yeah.
How much has she had an impact on your life? How much of an encouragement has she been for someone who's so used to speaking and encouraging? Tell me about that.
You know what? My wife has changed my life. I've become a better man because of her. And the sad thing is, we don't always tell our wives this, right? But I want to be so transparent on this podcast. My wife challenges me to be the best version of myself, even when I don't feel like it. Even when I don't want to hear it, she will still challenge me to do things. Like, she'll say things like, why are you going to eat that? You know, that you're not going to bet. And I don't want to hear it. Like, let me have the chocolate. Let me eat the crisp. But I know that she's only saying it because she wants the best for me, right? Being married to her, I've seen how I've become more disciplined as a man because of just how she is. Because she lives her life in a certain way, it's forced me almost to conduct myself in a certain way so that we can be in alignment. And I know, in fact, I was excited about marrying her because I knew I would lose some of the bad habits because of the way she lives her life. So for me, she's been an asset to me, right? Because of how she is as a human being. And so the thing about my wife is I married my pastor's daughter. So it was a thing where my wife's grown up in the church and stuff like that. So her morals and values have always been solid. And that's one thing I love about my wife. So she's someone that I know that I can go to get sound advice from her. She's someone that I know that when she's thinking about me, she's thinking about me from a pure place. So for me, she's been pivotal. And I honestly wouldn't be where I am today without her. And I wouldn't be the man that I am without her. And the funny thing is, she's not a businesswoman. That's absolutely fine. But I take counsel from her. Babe, what do you think about this? Oh, babe, I think it. And she'll be this type of person. Okay, cool. If it's the Lord's will, have you prayed about it? Okay, if God says, then cool, I'm with you. I'll support you. So, just those little things, just those little comments like, have you prayed about it? Okay, if it's the Lord's will. I'm like, why is everything? You got to pray about everything, man. What's your problem? Like, I just want to do this thing. But then I'm like, she's right. I do need to pray. I do need to seek the Lord. Is this actually God's will? Or am I getting carried away with another idea? So she's just really helps me to be principled and to make sure that I'm doing things in the right way in my life.
So just on that topic of principles and help and your go-to for sound advice, and that's the personal as well as your work.
Yeah.
On the work front, is there anyone else that you look up to in terms of motivational speakers?
Yeah, no doubt. One person, Eric Thomas, the number one motivational speaker in the world. And he's a man of God. So that's what really made me resonate with him, because his principles are aligned with mine. He's a Bible man, and actually he freely talks about his faith in his messages, is what I really like. He doesn't hide it. He'll be quoting scripture, and I love that about him. And he's a number one motivational speaker. He gets 200K per speaking engagement. Yeah, that's my inspiration. Eric Thomas. If you don't know, get to know. E.T. the hip hop preacher, Eric Thomas. That's my number one for my work, for sure.
That's very encouraging, and I'm sure someone would be Googling them right now.
Yeah.
And then tell me about how does the next chapter in your life or aspirations or careers looking like? What's the direction you see coming next?
Building up people to come after me. I won't be doing this forever. I love what I do, don't get me wrong. But so many people can do it. The Bible says one chases 1,000, two chase 10,000, right? So at the moment, I coach a lot of people in public speaking, coach a lot of people of how they can get paid as speakers to speak in schools and colleges and universities. So for me, I'm at a stage in my life where I'm enjoying training people to come after me, because I can be in London, this person can be in Birmingham, that person can be in Manchester, that person can be in Scotland. The more people that are trained to a high level, the more impact can be made. So I'm at a stage where I'm just expanding and just enjoying training people to start their own speaking brands and to become speakers themselves who get paid, but also create an impact. So I'm enjoying that at the moment.
And you exercising your faith to new heights. We always need a word of encouragement for our own faith to keep us going. Where's your faith now, and where's your faith going to take you in terms of your next step?
Ooh. My faith is big. I'm a big dreamer. So for me, I know definitely international. I definitely want to break down the doors internationally, because people, when you think about speakers, you think about Americans. I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to put the UK on the map now. So I'm trying to go international with it. America, Middle East, Australia, you name it. I'm coming for you. But also, I think eventually the goal is to have like an academy where it's like I train speakers to just go all over the world to create impact all over the world. And I think the scripture that really one of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, where it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, Acknowledge him in all your ways and he will direct your paths. So for me, I know if I trust in the Lord with all my heart, I lean not on my own logic, not on my own understanding. I acknowledge him in everything I want to do. So Lord, I'm thinking of starting an academy. Lord, I'm thinking of going international. Is it time? He will direct my paths. So what's important for me in my faith now is allowing God to be my business partner. I don't think you can get a better business partner than God or the Holy Spirit. So I'm at a stage in my life where my faith is based on making sure I'm partnering with God in everything that I'm doing. I've got an idea. Is this from you, Lord? Is this from you, Lord? That's where I'm at. So it's like, if God ain't in it, I don't want to be any part of it. Because too many times in my life, I've had ideas. I've gone to try and execute the idea. It's not worked out. I'm like, Lord, help me. Oh, Father God, if only you would just help me make some. And he's like, but I never sent you there in the first place. But you want me to bail you out now. So I'm at a stage in my life where I don't want to be bailed out anymore. I want to get it right from the jump. I want to make sure that I include God, that I'm asking God, that I'm seeking his face, that whatever I'm doing is in alignment with his will from the jump. And I think as Christians, we need to stop taking action without God's instruction. Right? So I'm at a stage in my life where my faith is like, wait for the instruction. And guess what? You might not get the instruction on the first day you ask for it. You might not get it after a week. You might not get it after a month. But you have to wait on the Lord. And I think that's where I'm at.
And if there was an inspiring or aspiring motivational speaker right now listening, what's your advice for someone who wants to become a motivational speaker or enter that field?
I think it's understand why you want to do it. Understand who you're trying to impact. And just make sure that it's coming from a pure place. Like, be authentic, be real. What I don't like that I see is these trained speakers. And don't get me wrong, you can give them training. Speaking is my gift. So what I personally do, you can't train that. How I connect with someone's spirit, you can't train that. So I just say, if you're aspiring, make sure it's your calling. Make sure it's your calling. It's not everything that glitters that's gold, right? Because I always tell people, you see the glory, but you don't know the story. Like, you weren't there when I used to work 13-hour shifts at the rubbish dump so I could pay my bills. And there's rats. And like, you weren't there, right? I always tell people the grind ain't glamorous. So don't think that because you said you want to be a motivational speaker, you're going to be booked and busy. As a self-employed person, I told you straight off the cuff, this is pay as you go. Don't be thinking you're going to quit your job and you're going to charge £10,000 per speaking engagement and people are going to be calling you every day. You might not get a call for a year because people don't know who you are. So it's really understand the industry. Like, do your research. Do you understand? Like, research the industry. Research what is realistic for me as someone who's new. What can I charge? How frequently can I get booked? Because don't get me wrong, you can start out, you can be booked, but there's certain things you need to have in place. But I think for me, the key thing is, what are your motives? Like, do you actually want to impact lives, or is it the money that's attracting you? Are you hearing our people get 50K, 200K, 100K, 10K for a speaking engagement? You're like, oh, I want a piece of that. Or is it you generally like, and I think this is the test, would you do it for free? Would you do this for free? Or is it about the money? Because if it's about the money, you won't survive. So for me, I think just check your motives. Just know who you want to speak to and know why you want to do it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Beezy. That's very inspiring, as always, and very encouraging. And we now move into this part of the segment where we'll do a quick 7 questions, 7 being the number of completion, and we're completing towards the end of this podcast. So 7 quick fire questions, and we'll go from there. And question number 1, what's your favourite sports team, if you have one?
Oh, come on, it's the best team in London, Chelsea.
Favorite takeaway?
Takeaway, I would say it's not really takeaway. It's more of a restaurant food, steak and chips.
Current or favorite music, artist or worship song?
My favorite worship song has to be the anthem, Todd Delaney. Like, you can't. That's my song.
Who is the one as a pastor that you're currently looking up to?
Yeah, I think naturally the pastor of my church, Pastor Dennis Scotland, but then also I really listen to a lot of Bill Winston in America. Like Bill Winston.
One thing that nobody knows about you?
Ooh. It's hard because it depends who you are to me. Some people might not know that I've got 3 brothers. You know, I've got an older brother, 2 younger brothers. Some people might not know I'm a really good footballer. Play a lot of football. Probably one thing a lot of people don't know about me, I used to sing in the choir. That's probably the one thing.
And then give me your favorite scripture or favorite book in the Bible.
Yeah, so again, as I said earlier, I think Proverbs chapter 3, 5 and 6. But book in the Bible, I kind of got 2. Matthew and Revelation. Let me quickly explain these, right? Matthew is in chapter 7, 13 and 14, where it talks about the narrow gate and the road to hell. That just shifts me into like, yo, I need to take this walk seriously because, you know, I could go hell if I'm not serious. Revelation, well, if you've read Revelation, you know why. Because whenever I fell astray, I would read Revelation and I promise you, I'd be back on track. So those 2 for sure.
And last but not least, as you know, this is Faith Off the Record. We want to bring on inspiring people, sharing about their faith. So 2 people or 1 person that you would recommend that we bring on next that you would think would be great to cover?
Definitely. I think you got to get my homeboy on the podcast, Michael Dapper. He's a man of faith. He's someone that I pray with. So definitely got to get Michael Dapper. He's got a fantastic story. And one of my good friends, someone that I've worked with as well, her name's Hayley Melenda Record. She's doing great things in the kingdom. Started her own movement called the Quit Movement. So you definitely want to get in contact with those 2 for sure.
I'm seeing Michael on there on Saturday. But thank you for your time, Mr. Beezy. Thank you for coming down and sharing your heart, sharing your story, and letting people get to know Mr. Beezy from the off the pulpit and from off the cameras and off the stage and getting up close and personal. So thank you again. It's been an inspiring message, an inspiring story, and with God's grace, wish you all the best for your endeavors. And we know that with your calling, you'll just go higher and higher. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me, bro. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you.